Welcome back. We'll start our focus with that today. We're joined this morning by Mr. Dan Ulasi, who is a former chairman of the PDP in Anambra State. Thank you for coming on this morning.
My pleasure.
Well, we do have a challenge in our hands concerning that, and security-wise as well. But today, we see the president has issued that order. He's met with different groups asking security operatives to just make sure that this ends. That certainly a sigh of relief, isn't it?
Well, I actually think so. But first, let me say thank you to the three of you and the rest of your colleagues. Because the level of despondency we have in the country presently, you'll be shocked. Even though I know you have families, you'll be shocked to know people go to bed and they don't wake up in the morning. Unfortunately, I've never seen this rate of people dying all over the country for unexplainable disease process. You don't know what has really happened. And I think we've never seen it this way. But for most of us from the province, I live in Enugu, we look forward every morning to watch you guys, the incisive reporting. You know, you don't know how much hope you raise, to be honest with you. That's how we know when you're in town, when you're not in town. When we don't see one or two of you, we feel very sad. But you listen to your programs and you believe that there's still some hope. The way you react, the way you ask your question, the way you represent the unavailable. So I want to thank you on behalf of the silent majority.
Thank you too.
That's the part. But you know, like somebody was, I think I was watching your program and somebody was saying, there's one theory of diversifying the economy. We've been hearing this for the past 35 or 50 years. Each generation comes up. I was discussing with Mr. Faseki now. He said, I left the university in 1973. I was in the first set of the National Youth Service Corps, served in Sokoto, what was then Northwestern States. We were the hope. So by 1973, one would have expected that by now we're in charge. It will also happen to you people. Because all we have copied is corruption, people parading on end income.
Why do you think that is the case?
It is a way of life now. Unfortunately, a way of life in Nigeria, because there's now scramble for, there used to be scramble for Africa, it's now scramble for Nigeria. Because there's no nationhood, there's no love, a lot of hate. When you listen to my colleagues in politics, I mean, when we watch you, and you see what people say, what they do, their body language, then you start to wonder, were these people really elected to serve? What jobs are they doing? I was watching when the president went to America and came back. And I saw a serving guard, the governor of Edo State. Then I didn't know who was the chairman of EFCC, telling Nigerians that a minister in the former government was who stole 6-point-something billion. It was on your news and every other network that he will soon be arraigned. This was a state governor. Then Lai Mohammed, every other day, there was nothing else they did than running the government down. That is not the impression of leadership. In fact, incidentally, they forgot that they are now in government. They are no more opposition. If you really play what they say now and what they used to say, there's no difference. Just like when we did PRP with Aminu Kano, we didn't know when we were in opposition and when we had two governments in Kano and Kaduna. So the simple way to answer your question is that it's not a crisis situation. We need a lot of prayers, because I know most of you, all of you were not born before the Civil War. I was in high school, I finished high school in 1966 to enter university, and the Civil War came up. So we wasted almost 3 years of that. But I remember that from the 70s, Gowon went to somewhere in the Caribbean and said that our problem was not money, but what to do with it. President of a country. Our problem was not money. We had so much money, but we didn't know what to do with it. That is leadership. That is Nigerian style leadership. Not long after that, when the problem of the coup came, before the problem of the coup came, he said there was no basis for Nigerian unity. And somebody came to me about a few days ago saying, Dan, you make arguments about how great this country is, and still I still make argument how great this country is, and it will be great by the grace of God. But don't you think that Gowon was right after all? Because if you see what is happening, there's no love lost, absolutely no love lost between the East and the West, between the North and the East. Everybody is behaving as if we all fell from the sky somewhere, that we don't have a relationship. So today, I was just discussing with my friend. He said, who is now a progressive in Nigeria? 80% of APC, they are PDP people. Speaker of the House, PDP. President of Senate, PDP. Most governors in the Northwest, all PDP. So how do you now define progressive? If you leave PDP that is corrupt, according to them, you move into APC, you become Saint Buhari. For as long as you remain in PDP, you're a corrupt person. So if we have these, occasional stops and gyrations, you don't know what the young ones coming up are learning, what you want them to practice, what you want them to preach, because they live in this society and they see it happening. They listen to their parents make comments, most of the time negative comments that do not aid nation building, and they grow up with it. What do you expect them to be then? Armed robbers, kidnappers, all negative tendencies in society.
No, it would appear as if nothing has changed, because if you're saying that from the time you left school, the time you served, 1973
yes,
till this moment, it seems as if we have the same narrative. Everyone thought that the next generation of leaders are being built now, and when the future becomes today, they're still where they were.
Let me give you one example. I was watching the trophy, and it was Maupe, I think, who, my good friend, the former governor of Rivers State, was on television here. You will regard them, he's in his 50s now, as the present-day generation that we're going to hand over the future to. And he was reporting about his state governor, the person who took over from him. He was his general manager campaign organization, was his chief of staff. These are the two appointments. Once you make it, they shows how close the individual is to you. From there, he made him a minister at the federal level. And suddenly, I didn't know what their problem was. He turns around to tell you that this guy is almost a killer. He has these tendencies, he had those tendencies. And Maupe asked him, didn't you know these things all along? Before you made him your campaign manager, you're this. And he couldn't answer that. Well, he said he didn't know. That is, again, poor judgment for somebody who has been speaker for 8 years, governor for 8 years, and the whole of Rivers State. You didn't find anybody other than Onyeson Wike to make your campaign manager, your chief of staff, fought the federal government because of him. And now Rivers is in, well, I hope they'll be able to get their acts together. And it's happening in every other state in different proportions.
Let me even bring this perspective, because you've been in politics for a long time in this country. Our politicians, because many have this impression that, look, they're never sincere with Nigerians. They come say one thing to us in front of the cameras, but behind the scenes, all those meetings that happen, they seem to play politics with almost everything, even with people's lives.
You know, the result of the last general election is a new hope. Before now, nobody ever thought it was possible to remove a federal government, because it never happened in the past. You remain there until there's a military coup. Now it shows the Nigerians are thinking, are talking, are reacting. Not just talking, they talk and react. Because you saw Buhari's coming to power. It was very vivid. It was obvious that he was coming to power. It was difficult for anybody to stop it. It was difficult for anybody. So now Nigerians are reacting to the extent that if you suffer and you feel the effect of things are not going the right way, if people start thinking of how do we make it better? If making it better is by changing regimes at local government level, at state level, at national level, it's a hope. But translated, has it worked? Because you would have expected that a president who tried for almost 16 years to be president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria had a grand plan, had a template of what we do. First mode, bam, 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 bam. It didn't just happen overnight. And God gave him power after 3 attempts. And we spent almost 1 year trying to get ourselves together, as if it's somebody who is just coming into power for the first time. He's been commissioner for petroleum, he's been head of state, he's been chairman of PTF. So it comes to this point of what we're talking about, corruption. I find it difficult, like Rotimi Amechi, we said that I have never received bribe, but nobody ever asked him, have you ever given bribe? It takes two to tango. So you have never received. Have you ever given yourself? He said in the National Assembly at his screening, and they didn't ask him anything. And he repeated it in the program you had with him, I have never received bribe. And nobody did ask him, have you ever given bribe to get for whatever thing you had wanted in your political life? So,
in one breath, sorry to interrupt you, but
no.
In one breath, I'm very interested in tracing, because I think it's Chinua Achebe who said that if we know where the rain began to beat us, then perhaps we can know where to begin to dry ourselves.
Yes.
You know, you were trying to trace from your experience in 1973, perhaps even your foray into politics and, you know, where we are right now in terms of the political class. That's on the one hand. And then you also talk about how people are parading unearned wealth.
Yes.
And they're celebrating, you know, it's something that the president has also talked about, and he seems really, really disturbed by it. It doesn't look like something that is going to turn around very soon. How do you think, or where do you think that, you know, this rain began to beat us, and how do you think we can begin to dry ourselves? Because that is exactly what we're supposed to be doing.
Malcolm, you know, the problem is the president, as genuine and as sincere